Yes.
Monkey, monkey,
Hello, mate.
monkey, monkey, hungry monkey.
Pear and apple.
Is it yummy?
And pear, I think. Yeah.
So hi everyone and welcome to Monkey Haven. My name is Jordan, I'm one of the keepers here. And I will introduce you to our lovely Barbary macaques in this enclosure and some of the other monkeys up here as well. So we do have the two girls that live in this enclosure. The one next to me is called Yilda and she is the boss by far. She's ever so funny to work with. As you saw, I was putting the food down, but she thought I was taking it from her, so she grabbed me. She doesn't quite understand I'm giving it to her, bless her. So this is Yilda, and the smaller one down this end is called Munya. And because Munya is smaller, she is the lowest in the hierarchy. And there was a point where there was 4 individuals in this enclosure, and she was still the lowest. So that's kind of how she's always been, because of her size. And that is why I spread the food quite far apart. Because if it's in the same place, Yilda goes back and forth from each share to eat it all. She's a bit greedy,
Oh, God.
and she will quite happily eat it all, even if Munya gets none. She couldn't care less.
Oh,
bless her.
a bit selfish.
But that is what the higher ranking members do. They're all about food. Otherwise, they've got a great bond. It's just at feeding time. So quite often, Yilda, she eats so quickly, Munya doesn't for some reason. She will quite often have some left over. What I do afterwards, she'll often wait inside, so the keeper will quite often give her an extra top up inside if she needs it. Sometimes she does, sometimes she doesn't. So both of our Barbies are victims of the pet trade, so they were both kept as pets. For example, Yilda was actually discovered being kept in a rabbit hutch in someone's living room. That of course is a tiny enclosure for such a large monkey that's not suitable for even a marmoset, let alone a macaque. So they're a really common pet because when they're born, they are the sweetest little things. They're actually born jet black. They look like a living teddy bear, is any way I can really describe it. They're gorgeous, and people get them from the pet trade, from the black market, and within a few months they're massive and dangerous with massive teeth, and macaques are unpredictable anyway, let alone one that's been handed over by humans. So you know it doesn't work out. Basically, that's where the AAP, where she came from. They have so many Barbies right now, and the AAP is, you might have, if you've been to any other talks today, you may have heard of it. It's a charity in Netherlands. It does stand for Ape in Dutch. It's a massive centre, and they rescue these primates from the pet trade, and their focus is primates, but they also rescue big cats and circuses. So it's not just monkeys, and they'll take the owners to court to gain custody over them, and that's what they did with her owners. It did take about 3 months of going back and forth with the courts. At one point they didn't think, you know, that they'd be able to take her, and even though the condition she was living in was quite awful, and anyone with a heart, wouldn't want her to stay like that. But the issue is there's just no laws in place, which can mean actually winning the court battles can make it so challenging. There's just nothing there to say it's wrong. Even in the UK, there's still a lot of species of monkey, like mainly marmosets, tamarins, and squirrel monkeys, that are still allowed to be kept here, and that's without a license. That means it's off the record, off the books. No one knows, and no one really needs to monitor how they're being cared for. But they're complex animals, and these macaques, but the marmosets are not far off, have the same brain function as a 4-year-old human. So when you're keeping a little 4-year-old human locked in the enclosure, it's just the fact it's still allowed here in the UK really baffles us keepers. I guess not everyone knows that. So yeah, and hopefully, there are lots of proposals for new laws, so it should be changing in the next few years, hopefully. Touch wood at least. So that's our Yilda. Now, Munya's story is a bit different. She was actually found by a tourist, tied up at a pub in Belgium, and she was almost kind of being used as their mascot. So she would just kind of be out the front, people walking in and out would laugh at her, kind of feed her junk food, chocolate bars. But what's worse for Munya is she was given cigarettes to smoke from a really young age, and she was smoking so much that it did cause stunted growth. So that is why she is so tiny. It happens all too often, unfortunately, because people find it funny. Oh, it's a monkey smoking. Oh, brilliant, isn't it? So, and she is in great health. She's prone to getting cold in the winter because her lungs aren't great. So most winters we do hear her laboured breathing, but luckily the joints are fine, her bones are fine. So that's a big worry too with stunted growth. But no, she's doing okay there. But she's just a bit tiny, and it's hard to tell against Yilda because Yilda isn't particularly a massive female. So with these two, it's not much difference. But compared to a dominant male or a bigger female that we used to have called Nushka, she was quite tiny, bless her. And yeah, in the wild, if there was one this small, they would be exiled from the group. They wouldn't have survived, unfortunately. So that's why you've never seen this small in the wild. Bless her. But she's doing well. She's so friendly, so sweet. She loves to groom the keepers. So she'll pick through mainly the arms, but sometimes she wants to go for your face, looking for any kind of scabs on your face or eyelashes come out. So yeah, she's a little monster. A lot of the primates here, they hate nail varnish. So if any of the keepers here are wearing it, they'll hold the finger down and pick it all off. So they can't stand it because it's not meant to be there. In their mind, it's dirt. So it makes sense. Bless them. So that's our little Munya. Now, luckily, again, this tourist did find her at the pub. He watched her for a few hours before saying anything, and he was just shocked because he said once she would finish one cigarette, her hand would be out waiting for the next. So she was very addicted, and that is why he bought her off the pub for €300, and then contacted the AAP and said, look, I'm a bit stuck right now, and she was, they were able to send her over. So yeah, it's quite incredible that she was found because she wouldn't have lasted much longer there. Bless her. So they have got a great bond, as I mentioned. When there was 4 in this enclosure, it was a shame because, to be honest, Munya just didn't really have a friend. She struggled in the enclosure. Even with just 4 in the wild, there can be a group of 30 members, sometimes more. But because there was, Yilda and Nushka had a great bond, and they wanted to get with Hichi, and she was just the outsider. And even when there was just 3, Hichi, he's still thriving, just not here. Him and Yilda didn't get on at all. So he just wasn't happy here. So that's why he now lives with his brother in another centre where he's getting on a lot nicer. And Nushka, unfortunately, I won't go too deep into it because it's not very nice, but the condition that they arrive in, sometimes it isn't fair to keep them around anymore. They do arrive in such a state with mental illnesses that we gave her a year, but she wasn't getting on well. And it can be as mild as pacing and then get a lot worse than that. It's just not fair on them. So just the 2 girls, but the silver lining is that they have a great bond now because Yilda hasn't got a more impressive female to get best friends with. Munya's the only option she has for a friend. So although at feeding time it's a bit iffy, otherwise they do sunbathe together, they groom each other all day long, they share the same, they've got 2 bedrooms, but at night time they share the same shelf, which is really sweet. So it's the first time Munya's ever known having a friend like this, so that's why we're not going to bring any more in for her sake, because we know for a fact it wouldn't end well. There's always been discussion options like an older one that can't be asked for drama, that could be quite good. That sometimes works because the older ones are always lower in the hierarchy, unfortunately, so that could also be one that Munya gets on well with, or a baby would be great if they stayed babies, but they won't. So yes, that's why it's just our 2 girls, and they are lovely. Now Barbara is actually native to Africa. That's where they're meant to be found. I think there's believed to be 8 to 15,000 left in the wild, so not loads out there anymore, unfortunately. Due to poaching is the biggest reason, but there is also a population of Barberries in Gibraltar, which is where you may have seen them quite frequently in documentaries, or if you've been there. There's only around 300, so not many, but many years ago, people fled Africa and they took their pet Barberries with them, because Barberries and any macaques have a deep connection to religion. So many different tribes and religions will keep them as pets, which is what they do. And a handful got loose. That's how it started out there. The conditions are perfect, so they've been thriving for years. And unfortunately, due to a mixture of superstition and tourism, they're having more brought over to make sure the gene pool stays bigger, because otherwise it would have died out many years ago. So that is why they're there. Not meant to be, but these are the ones that are going to steal anything in sight, so handbags and packed lunches, anything they can steal. I've also seen videos of them actually waiting outside shops, and people walk out of the shop with their groceries and they can all just jump on them and tackle them down. So yeah, obviously they're quite friendly unless you say no to them, and that's when they get not so friendly. So our girls are the same. They can be lovely, but we just don't take the risk with them. They can, as rescues too. It's hard for us to think about this because a collection, even here in the UK, has got a Barbie walkthrough, so where the public can walk through their enclosure. Whereas with our girls, that would not end well because they're rescues. you know, they're a bit different, bless them. But I love them dearly. They're little
Aw,
characters. But
bless.
I will be heading over to actually feed another group now, the Reese's
We'll
Macaques.
come
But
with
were
you.
there any questions about these two girls?
How old are they?
So Munya is now 13 years old and Yulda's 12. They can live into their late 30s. So
Aw.
yeah, so you
Little
they're-
while then.
a little while, and that kind of explains why Yulda is a bit bossy, because she's kind of, you know, in human years she'd be kind of a rich approaching 20 years now, so she's full of all these hormones and
Oh,
bless her,
right,
yeah. So we actually had to get her implanted because she was just,
Oh, really?
she was too much hard work. So yeah, she on the implant, not only hard work, but she was having awful cramps, bless her, which just wasn't fair on her.
No,
And
they get the same as what ladies get
yeah,
there.
not as often, about 3 times
Oh,
a year.
right.
Yeah, but she was hating it. Bless her. She
Oh,
was,
that's not
yeah,
good.
she was inside not eating, just grumpy. So
Oh.
it's helped her out a lot actually. She
That's
hasn't had cramps for a year.
Oh, how
Bless her.
sweet.
Yeah, it's all very similar. So yeah, we'll be heading over to the Reese's. The group just up here to your left.
Someone having a domestic, were they?